Mommy put something in my smoothie. It makes me sleep.
Really?
She's been drugged for months. Take better care of the child.
Is this a serious problem?
Don't worry too much.
My granddaughter whispered, "Mommy put something in my smoothie. It makes me sleep." 2 hours later, the doctor said, "She's been drugged for months." So I stayed quiet. And by the time her mother realized, I had already ended her life as she knew it. My name is Thomas Green, 63 years old, a retired mechanic with hands that still carry the memory of every engine I've ever rebuilt. I'm broad-shouldered, a little hunched now from years under hoods, gray hair cut short, and a permanent crease between my brows that people mistake for anger. It's not anger. It's habit years of focusing on things that don't sound right. 3 days ago, I missed my granddaughter's birthday, not because I forgot. I don't forget things like that, but because my back gave out again. It started in my garage in Austin, Texas. Warm sunlight cutting through the open door, dust floating in the air, the smell of motor oil baked into the concrete. I bent down to lift a toolbox I've carried 1,000 times before, and something in my spine pulled like a snapped cable. Next thing I knew, and I was flat on my back for 2 days straight. By the time I could stand upright again, the party was over. Cake eaten, balloons deflated. My granddaughter Lily, 8 years old, small for her age, soft brown curls always falling into her eyes, bright and curious, had already blown out her candles without me there. That part stayed with me. I kept picturing her looking toward the door, waiting. So on Tuesday afternoon, I got dressed, slower than I used to, and placed a gift bag on the passenger seat of my truck. Purple, her favorite color. Inside was a stuffed elephant soft, oversized ears, something she could hold on to. The plan was simple. Drop by, say sorry, take her out for ice cream, make it right. My son, Ethan Green, lives about 30 minutes away in a newer part of Austin. He's 36, tall, lean, always well put together in a way I never was. Clean haircut, pressed shirts, the kind of man people trust without thinking twice. He works in corporate sales, travels often, long hours, too long. Ethan's always been a good man, but he trusts too easily. That's something I taught him and something I regret. His wife, Megan Carter Green, is 32. Blonde, sharp features, always composed. The kind of woman who looks like she has everything under control, even when she doesn't. She grew up with very little, built her life piece by piece, and somewhere along the way, control became more important to her than anything else. At least, that's what I used to think. I pulled into their driveway around 2:15 p.m. The house looked perfect. Clean lines, trimmed lawn, big glass windows reflecting the sky. Too perfect. I remember sitting there for a second, engine still running. And I felt it. That same feeling I used to get when an engine sounded fine, but something deep inside it was off. Not loud, not obvious. Just wrong. You don't hear it. You feel it. I turned off the engine anyway, grabbed the gift, walked to the door, because sometimes you don't know what's broken until you open it. I stepped inside the house, and the first thing I noticed wasn't the furniture or the smell, it was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. This one felt staged, like a showroom where nobody actually lived. The floors were spotless, the walls decorated with framed photos that looked more posed than lived in. I called out once, "Lily?" But my voice seemed to disappear before it reached the stairs. Megan passed briefly through the hallway, phone pressed to her ear, her posture straight, movements efficient. She gave me a quick glance, just enough to acknowledge I existed, before turning away mid-conversation, her tone light, almost amused, as if nothing in the world required her full attention. I went upstairs alone. Lily's room was at the end of the hall, the second door on the left. The sign still hung there, hand-painted letters, uneven. "A pink Lily's room." I knocked softly. No answer. I knocked again, a little louder. "Hey, Bug, it's Grandpa." There was a pause, then a slow shuffle from inside, like someone moving through water. The door creaked open, and there she was. Something was wrong. Lily stood there, small frame leaning slightly against the door, her curly brown hair uncombed, eyes half-lidded. Not sick, not feverish, just distant, like she was there, but not fully. Her smile came a second too late, like her body had to catch up to her thoughts. "Grandpa," she said, her voice soft, dragging at the edges. I crouched down to her level, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Hey, birthday girl, you ready for that ice cream I promised?" She nodded, but slowly, like the idea had to travel a long way before reaching her. I handed her the purple gift bag. She took it with both hands, but there was no excitement, no quick tearing, no bounce in her movements. She opened it carefully, almost mechanically, like she was following instructions instead of feeling anything. When she pulled out the stuffed elephant, though, something flickered. A real smile this time, brief but unmistakable. "She's soft," Lily murmured, hugging it gently. "I'm going to name her Daisy." I nodded, watching closely. That moment, tiny as it was, felt like the only real thing in the room. Then she went quiet. Kids have a way of going quiet when something matters. I've learned that over the years. Lily stepped closer, her small hand resting on my knee, her eyes lifting just enough to meet mine. "Grandpa," she whispered, barely audible. "Can you ask Mommy to stop putting stuff in my smoothie?" My chest tightened, but I didn't move, didn't react. "What stuff, baby?" I asked, keeping my voice even. She shrugged slightly, already fading again. "I don't know. It makes me sleepy. I don't like it." That was it. No drama, no tears. Just truth. I stood up slowly, offering her my hand. "Hey, how about we go get that ice cream now?" She nodded again, easier this time. I led her downstairs, steady, controlled, like nothing had changed. Megan was in the kitchen, still on her phone, leaning against the counter, laughing softly at something on the other end. I paused just long enough to speak. "I'm taking Lily out for a bit." She waved a hand without looking up, dismissive, casual. "Yeah, sure, that's fine. No questions, no hesitation." That told me more than anything else. As I walked Lily out to the truck, I couldn't shake the feeling crawling under my skin. Not new, not sudden, just something I'd ignored before. The times Ethan mentioned Lily napping a lot, the way she'd seemed quieter during my last visit, the way Megan always had an explanation ready. I buckled Lily into her seat, her head already leaning slightly to one side, clutching the elephant. And for the first time that day, I stopped telling myself I was overthinking it. I didn't take Lily for ice cream. I drove straight to Bright Care Pediatric Clinic, a small place off Lamar Boulevard I'd trusted for years, the kind of clinic that didn't try to impress you with marble floors or fancy screens, just clean walls, quiet staff, and people who actually listened. Lily sat beside me in the passenger seat, buckled in, her head leaning against the window, one arm wrapped loosely around the stuffed elephant. By the time I parked, her eyes were already closing again, like someone slowly turning off a light. I carried her inside. At the front desk sat Marissa Cole, late 20s, slim, dark hair tied in a low ponytail, her face calm but alert in the way nurses learn to be after seeing too many emergencies. She recognized me immediately. "Mr. Green, is everything okay?" she asked. I was standing up slightly as she noticed Lily barely conscious in my arms. I didn't waste time. "I need a doctor. Something's wrong with her." That was enough. No forms, no waiting room. She led us straight back. Dr. Kevin Harper came in 5 minutes later, early 40s, tall, lean, glasses slightly crooked like he'd pushed them up too many times that day, a man who carried fatigue in his shoulders but sharpness in his eyes. He'd treated Lily twice before, minor infections. But what I trusted about him wasn't his experience. It was the way he didn't dismiss people. "Tell me everything," he said, pulling up a stool. So I did. Every word Lily whispered, the slow movements, the eyes, the smoothie. He didn't interrupt, didn't question my judgment. He just nodded once and turned to Lily, gently checking her pulse, her pupils, her breathing. "We're going to run a full tox screen," he said, already moving. "Urine, blood, I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." We waited. Time in a clinic moves differently, slower, heavier. Lily sat up for a moment, nibbling on crackers Marissa brought in, like this was just another normal afternoon. Then, halfway through chewing, she leaned against me and went completely limp. Not collapsing, not fainting, just gone. Asleep. Instantly. I caught her, my arm tightening around her small body, feeling how deeply she'd sunk. Too deep. I stared at the wall and thought about engines. When something's wrong in an engine, you don't guess. You don't assume. You listen. You take it apart piece by piece until you find the failure point, because if you miss it, even once, it destroys everything else. I'd missed something. The door opened. Dr. Harper walked back in, holding a sheet of paper, his expression controlled but heavier than before. He looked at Lily first, then at me. "Mr. Green," he said carefully, "how long has she been like this?" I didn't answer. "What's in her system?" I asked instead. He turned the paper toward me. "Diphenhydramine," he said, "commonly known as Benadryl. In small doses, it's safe, but..." He paused, choosing his words. "These levels indicate repeated administration over time. This isn't accidental. Repeated. Over time." The words didn't hit me all at once. They settled in, slow and cold. "I'm required to report this," he added quietly. "Possible child endangerment." I nodded once. My voice came out steady, even though everything inside me wasn't. "Give me 24 hours. He studied me, not suspicious, not dismissive, just measuring. Then he gave a small nod. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "If I don't hear from you, I make the call." "Understood." I carried Lily back to the truck. She didn't wake up, not once. And as I drove, I realized something that sat heavier than anything else. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't new. This had been happening right in front of me, and I hadn't seen it. I didn't go home right away. I sat in the truck outside the clinic parking lot, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, watching Lily sleep in the passenger seat. Not tossing, not dreaming, just gone. Too still for a child. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. He picked up on the second ring, voice steady, a little distracted like he was walking between meetings. "Hey Dad, everything okay?" That was Ethan, always calm, always assuming things were manageable. I kept my tone light. "Yeah, just checking in. How's Lily been lately?" There was a pause, short but real. "She's fine, maybe a little more tired than usual. Megan thinks she's hitting a growth spurt." Growth spurt. I stared at the dashboard, feeling something tighten in my chest. "You notice anything else? Appetite? Energy?" He let out a small breath. "Dad, kids go through phases. Megan's got it handled." That was the moment I understood it clearly. My son wasn't careless. He was blindfolded by trust. "Right," I said quietly. "Just thought I'd ask." I didn't push. Not yet. I ended the call and sat there for another minute, letting the silence settle. If I told him now without proof, without structure, he'd defend her. Not because he didn't love Lily, but because people protect the version of reality they believe in. And Ethan believed in his wife. I had to take that away carefully. I started the engine and drove home, Lily still asleep the entire ride. That night, after settling her into the guest room's soft blankets, dim light, the stuffed elephant tucked under her arm, I made another call. This one mattered more. James Whitfield, late 50s, tall, silver hair combed back, always in a pressed suit even when he didn't need to be, a family attorney with a reputation for precision. He didn't talk much, but when he did, and it was because he already knew the outcome. He'd handled my late wife's estate years ago, and I never forgot how efficiently he moved through chaos. He answered on the third ring. "Thomas, it's been a while." I got straight to it. "I need advice. Something serious." He didn't ask questions on the phone. "Come in tomorrow morning," he said. "Bring everything you have." Everything I have. That meant I needed more. The next morning started with paperwork. I went back to the clinic, requested copies of Lily's test results. Marissa printed them without hesitation, her expression more serious than before. I thanked her, folded the papers carefully, like they might break if I didn't. From there, I drove to a nearby pharmacy chain I knew Megan used, Walgreens on South Lamar. I didn't walk in angry. I walked in focused. The pharmacist on duty, Daniel Ruiz, mid-30s, stocky build, kind face with tired eyes, recognized the last name when I mentioned Megan's prescription history. I can't release anything without proper authorization," he said politely. I nodded. "I'll have that soon," because now I knew exactly what to ask James for. Back at the house, Lily woke up briefly, just long enough to drink some water and give me a small, clearer smile than the day before. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell me something important. Distance mattered. I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad writing everything down. Times, symptoms, conversations. Mechanics don't guess, we document. Patterns reveal themselves when you lay them out properly. I could feel the anger sitting just under the surface, steady and hot, but I didn't let it move me. Anger makes noise. I needed silence. By the time I finished, the plan was simple. Gather evidence, control the timing, get Lily out, and don't make a single move too early. I met the investigator the next evening at a quiet diner off Highway 71, the kind of place where conversations stayed low and nobody asked questions. His name was Raymond Ray Dobbins, mid-40s, thick build, short-cropped hair, the kind of man who blended into any room because nothing about him tried to stand out. But his eyes sharp, steady. Those belonged to someone who noticed everything. He shook my hand once, firm, then slid into the booth across from me. "James said it's sensitive," he said, voice low, controlled. "Family situation." I nodded. "I need the truth. No assumptions, no shortcuts." He gave a small nod. "That's the only way I work." I handed him what I had. Lily's test results, the timeline I'd written, notes about Megan's routines. He didn't interrupt, just scanned everything carefully. "Just if what you're saying lines up," he said finally, "then we're not just looking at neglect." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I leaned back slightly, keeping my voice steady. "Find out what she's doing when she thinks nobody's watching." Ray nodded once. "Give me 48 hours. He didn't need more. 2 days later, he called. "I've got something. Meet me." Same diner, same booth. This time, he didn't waste time. A manila folder slid across the table, heavier than it should have been. I opened it. Photos, clear, time-stamped. Megan perfect posture, carefully styled hair, that same composed expression standing too close to a man I'd never seen before. Then another photo, different location, same man. Hand on her back, familiar, intimate. "Name's Ryan Cole," Ray said. 38, sales consultant, travels often, clean record. I flipped through the photos, each one tightening something inside my chest. Ryan was tall, well-built, the kind of man who carried himself like he'd never had to fight for much. Dark hair, expensive clothes, easy confidence, the kind that attracts attention without asking for it. "How long?" I asked. Ray didn't hesitate. "At least 8 months. That's what I can confirm." 8 months. I sat there doing the math without meaning to. "Now here's where it gets worse," Ray added, tapping one of the pages. I lined up the dates. Every time they met hotel receipts, timestamps your granddaughter's sleep patterns spike. Longer durations, more frequent. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. He continued, voice still even. "It's consistent. Too consistent to ignore." I closed the folder slowly. "So she needed time," I said quietly. Ray nodded once. "That's what it looks like. Time. That's what it came down to. Not anger, not resentment. Convenience." I leaned back, staring past him for a second, not seeing the diner anymore, just pieces falling into place. As Megan's past came back to me in fragment stories Ethan had told me years ago, growing up with nothing, single mother, moving from place to place, always chasing stability, always trying to build something better. And somewhere along the way, better had turned into perfect. Perfect house, perfect image, perfect life. But real life doesn't stay perfect without a cost. And she'd found a way to control that cost. I looked back at Ray. "Does he know about Lily?" I asked. Ray paused, then shook his head slightly. "He knows she exists, but from what I've gathered, Megan paints her as difficult, high maintenance." He hesitated, then added, "He's never asked questions." Of course he hadn't. People like him don't look too closely at things that might ruin what they want. I slid the folder closed and placed my hand on top of it. The anger was still there, but it had changed now. Sharper. Focused. This wasn't chaos anymore, this was structure. And now I finally understood the reason behind everything. I didn't call Ethan right away. Some things don't belong on a phone. I told him to come by the house that evening, kept my voice steady, neutral, the way you talk when you don't want to give anything away. He arrived just after 6, pulling into my driveway in his silver sedan, stepping out with that same composed posture he always carried into the world. Tall, lean, clean-cut, everything in place. From the outside, he looked like a man in control. But I knew him better than that. I knew the parts he kept hidden. When he walked in, he smiled briefly. "Hey, Dad, everything okay?" That word again. Okay. I nodded toward the kitchen. "Sit down." He noticed it then, the tone. Not harsh, just different, enough to make him pay attention. He sat across from me at the table, hands resting flat, waiting. I didn't speak at first, and I just placed the folder in front of him. "Read." He looked at me for a second, searching for something in my face, then opened it, the first page medical report. His eyes moved quickly at first, then slowed. I watched the shift happen. Not dramatic, not loud, just stillness. He finished the page, set it down carefully like it might burn him if he moved too fast. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "Keep going," I said. Next came the pharmacy logs, dates, quantities, patterns. His jaw tightened, just slightly. Then the photos. He didn't flip through all of them. He didn't need to. 2 was enough. I saw it in his face the moment the story in his head started breaking apart. He closed the folder. For a long time, he didn't say anything. Then he leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling like he was trying to hold something together that didn't want to stay intact. "This isn't real," he said, but there was no conviction in it. Not denial, just shock, trying to buy time. "It is," I answered. He exhaled slowly, dragging his hand down his face. I hadn't seen him like that since he was a kid. For a second, that memory came back clear. Ethan at 10 years old, standing in the garage beside me, holding a wrench too big for his hands. He trusted me completely back then. If I told him something was broken, he believed me. No questions. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Now, I needed him to believe me again. "She said Lily was just tired," he murmured. "That she needed more sleep." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. I didn't interrupt. Let him work through it. That's something I learned the hard way. People don't accept truth when you force it. They accept it when they arrive there themselves. After a while, he leaned forward again, elbows on the table, hands clasped tight. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since yesterday," I said. "But I needed proof before I brought it to you." He nodded slowly. He had no anger toward me, just understanding. That's when I saw it. The shift. Not the husband anymore. The father. His eyes sharpened, focus returning, but different now. Colder, clearer. "What do we do?" he asked. I didn't answer right away, because this part mattered. He needed to say it. And after a few seconds he did. "We don't confront her," he said quietly. "Not yet." He looked at the folder again, then back at me. "We make sure she can't talk her way out of this." I gave a small nod. That was the moment. Not when he got angry, not when he raised his voice, but when he chose control. Ethan straightened slightly, shoulders settling into something steady. "If we do this," he added, "we do it right." And just like that, my son wasn't blind anymore. Ethan didn't go home that night. He stayed at my place, sleeping in his old room like nothing had changed, except everything had. The next morning, he sat across from me at the kitchen table, phone in his hand, staring at Megan's name on the screen for a long time before finally pressing call. When she answered, her voice came through soft, controlled, the same tone she used when she wanted something to sound harmless. Ethan matched it perfectly. Calm, even warm. "We need to talk," he said. A pause. Then Megan exhaled, relief slipping through. "I've been waiting for you to say that," she replied. That was the first piece of the trap snapping into place. She believed there was still something to fix. For the next 2 days, Ethan played his role flawlessly. He texted just enough, called once in the evening, let his voice soften at the right moments. Megan leaned into it quickly, too quickly. That told us everything we needed to know about her state of mind. She wasn't preparing for a fight. She was preparing for forgiveness. I watched it unfold from a distance, saying little, letting Ethan take control. This had to come from him, not me. The meeting was set for Friday afternoon at Whitfield Legal Offices, downtown Austin. A quiet, polished space, dark wood, glass walls, everything designed to feel controlled and professional. James Whitfield was already there when we arrived, standing near the conference table, posture straight, expression unreadable as always. Beside him was a younger woman I hadn't met before. Clara Jensen, early 30s, slim, blonde hair tied back tightly, sharp eyes behind thin-framed glasses. An associate attorney. Efficient, precise, the kind of person who noticed details others missed. She gave a brief nod, and already setting up the recording equipment on the table, small, discreet, entirely legal. Every word spoken in that room would be documented. Megan arrived 10 minutes later. She looked composed, carefully put together like always. Light makeup, soft-colored blouse, posture controlled. But I saw the cracks, the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes moved too quickly when she stepped into the room. She expected emotion, maybe even an apology. She didn't expect structure. "Ethan," she said, her voice softening immediately as she walked toward him. "I'm glad you called." He stood, gave her a small nod. Nothing more. No warmth. No distance. Just neutral. "Sit down," he said. She sat, and the trap closed. Ethan didn't start with accusations. He started with silence, letting it stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then, calmly, he slid a single sheet across the table, the medical report. Megan glanced at it, then back at him. "What is this?" she asked, already defensive. Ethan didn't answer. He just watched her. That was all it took. She started talking. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "She's been having trouble sleeping. She stopped herself, but it was too late. Clara's pen moved once across her notepad. Recorded. Ethan reached into the folder and placed the pharmacy records beside the report. Then the photos, one by one. Megan's eyes dropped to the images. For the first time since she walked in, her composure broke. Not dramatically, just a flicker. But enough. "You went through my things?" she asked, voice tightening. Ethan's gaze didn't move. "No," he said quietly. "You made it easy." She looked around the room then, at me, at James, at Clara, finally understanding she wasn't in control anymore. The explanation she'd prepared didn't fit this situation. Not here. Not with evidence laid out piece by piece. "I was overwhelmed," she said, trying again, voice softer now. "You were always gone, Ethan. I needed time. I just needed her to rest more, that's all." There it was. Not anger, not denial, just justification. James finally spoke, calm and measured. "Mrs. Green, are you stating that you administered medication to your child without medical instruction, repeatedly for personal convenience?" Megan froze. The room went quiet. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Ethan didn't raise his voice. Not once. He sat there across from Megan in that quiet conference room, hands folded, posture steady, letting the weight of everything on that table speak for him. James Whitfield took over with the kind of calm authority that didn't need volume to dominate a room. "We'll proceed with filing immediately," he said, sliding a prepared document forward. His tone was measured, precise, the way a man speaks when every outcome has already been calculated. Clara Jensen sat beside him, already organizing the recorded files, her movements efficient, her expression unchanged. Everything that needed to be said had been captured. Everything that mattered was now evidence. Megan didn't argue the facts. She couldn't. Instead, she shifted, trying to reposition herself inside a story that no longer fit. "Yeah, you're overreacting," she said, voice tight, controlled but fraying at the edges. "This doesn't have to be like this." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, not angry, not emotional, just done. "It already is," he replied quietly. Then he stood, pushed his chair back, and walked out. No scene, no second chances. The legal process moved fast after that, faster than Megan expected. Within days, the paperwork was filed: divorce, emergency custody request, and a formal report supported by Dr. Harper's findings. The case was clear. Repeated administration of medication without medical supervision, documented, verified, combined with evidence of prolonged infidelity, it painted a picture the court couldn't ignore. I met Assistant District Attorney Laura Kim a week later, a woman in her early 40s, sharp-featured, always dressed in dark suits that matched her direct, no-nonsense demeanor. She didn't waste time on sympathy. The documentation is solid," she said, reviewing the files with a practiced eye. "This isn't a gray area." That was all I needed to hear. Megan's world didn't collapse in a single moment. It unraveled quietly, piece by piece. Her employer placed her on administrative leave as soon as the investigation began. Not publicly, not dramatically, Just a short email, a closed-door meeting, and her access badge deactivated by the end of the day. The kind of ending that leaves no room for explanation. As for Ryan Cole, he didn't fight. According to Ray, the moment he was contacted, he cooperated fully. Gave statements, confirmed timelines, handed over messages, self-preservation. Men like him don't go down with someone else's decisions. He stepped back, disappeared from the situation entirely. Megan stood alone. The custody ruling came faster than I expected. Temporary full custody granted to Ethan pending final review. Megan was allowed supervised visitation only, and under strict conditions. No unsupervised contact, no control. Lily never knew the details, not the truth behind it. She just knew she was staying with us longer. And slowly, day by day, I watched her come back. The heaviness in her eyes lifted. Her movement sharpened. Her laughter returned in small bursts at first, then stronger. One afternoon, I found her in the backyard, running in uneven circles with Daisy tucked under her arm, her curls bouncing as she laughed at nothing in particular. No hesitation, no delay, just a child again. Ethan stood beside me on the porch, watching her. He didn't say much, he didn't need to. After a moment, he turned slightly. "I should have seen it," he said quietly. I shook my head once. "You see what you're given," I replied. "Now you see everything." A few days later, we were in the garage together, working on an old pickup I'd been meaning to fix for years. The hood was open, tools spread out, the familiar rhythm of repair settling between us. Ethan picked up a wrench, hesitated, then adjusted his grip the way I taught him when he was 10. Small things come back like that. We worked in silence for a while before he spoke again. "You always said if something feels off, it probably is." I nodded. "Yeah." He tightened the bolt, then leaned back slightly. "I get it now." Outside, Lily's laughter carried through the open garage door, and for the first time in a long time, nothing felt wrong. Sometimes justice isn't loud, it's quiet and final. So, what would you do? Confront her immediately, or stay silent and expose everything the right way? Forgive, or walk away forever? And the hardest one, can a parent ever be trusted again after choosing convenience over their own child? Comment your choice below. I really want to hear your side. If this story hooked you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the next one might hit even harder.